Is that a gun in your pocket? During my month-long stint in China in 1995, on my halfway through, I ended up in a place called Penglai. It was the second factory of the two that I was working on in China. Penglai is bigger than the village I'd previously been to, but still quite small. Been a Westerner, there wasn't too many around, and normal etiquette about not staring at people didn't apply. And I think the first while you would feel a little bit intimidated that everybody would literally stop and stare at you. Yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. But after a day or two, it was something you got used to. The two engineers I worked with whilst I was there were both British. An older gentleman in his 50s, who'd had a life of travelling and engineering cooling systems in factories, and a younger guy who was building up the same sort of experience. So yeah, it was nice. I remember arriving after a long journey. I'd flown from the previous site to Beijing. I had a night in Beijing, one night in Beijing. That could almost be a song. And then I'd flown down to Yantai, and then got a car journey to Penglai. Anyway, when I arrived in the hotel, and it was a hotel this time, so that was good, I heard a Yorkshire accent swearing loudly in the reception at people coming into the building. Yeah, it was a trick that my younger colleague liked to play, because he could always tell those who had a good grasp of the English language because they'd swear back at him. So yeah, it's sort of some sort of entertainment he had going on there. But it was the sort of place, when you've been there a long time, it could really drive you crazy. And I think everybody had a coping mechanism. Maybe that was his. Anyway, we spent a lot of time in the hotel when we wasn't working, which actually wasn't that much because we used to work very long days. But one evening, the older gentleman said to me that there's a bar around the corner that we should frequent. And I said, well, okay. And I actually felt safe and secure because these guys, they knew the place. They'd been there a good while. Both of them had been there more than 3 months. They knew the lay of the land. They knew where not to go and where you could go. So we decided to walk the short distance to this bar. And as we're walking along, he turns to me and he said, listen, the owner of the bar, he may at some point pull out a gun. Don't worry about it. He's just showing off. He never ever shoots anybody. And I did wonder at the time whether it was worse that he'd told me this, that maybe he was messing, So we arrived at the bar, and we sat down at a very large table, the three of us, and we started drinking. After a very short while, about 8 or 9 young Chinese women came up to the table and sat with us. I just want to say, for the record, it was perfectly above board. They were there just, I suppose, to entertain in a definitely a non-sexual manner. Obviously paid for by the establishment, and they spoke pretty good English for the evening. So it wasn't too bad. I don't have a huge recollection. I remember one young lady reading my palm and telling me that I was a good person. But one of the guys I work with turned to me and said, "Yeah, that's because you're quiet. They like quiet people." And I think she also said something along the lines of I was going to meet somebody and I was going to be very rich. She didn't say good looking, but it was pretty obvious from looking at me, I suppose, at the time. I remember going to the toilet and having quite an interesting experience. It was a communal toilet, for men and women. And when I went to go to the toilet, there was 3 or 4 women washing their clothes in the sink. So that was quite an experience. Now, needless to say, the owner did not pull his gun out. Certainly not on me. And the young ladies were lovely, polite, and friendly. And we went back to our hotel, and that was that. But yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. I have to say the Qingdao beer was fantastic. And if I'm ever in a Tesco's or a supermarket that stocks the beer, I'd always get a bottle, maybe for old time's sake, from the time I was in a bar in China.